What if the thing that shaped your future wasn't school, but the games you grew up playing? I'm currently about to graduate from university with a political degree, but actually choosing to study this wasn't an easy nor a clear decision to make at the time. University is supposed to be the time when you truly take your life in your hands, stepping out into the world, choosing your degree as a reflection of where you want to go in life. And I don't know why I ever thought that was a simple concept, because when it finally came time to choose my degree, I was really stumped. I didn't have the strongest sense of what I wanted to do with my life, and to be honest, I still don't. So I needed time to reflect. Ideally, in the best case scenario, I thought to myself that I would want a job, a career that made me happy, that fulfilled me personally, and wasn't something that I felt I had to do just for the sake of it. Immediately, the first thing my mind jumped to was actually creative writing. I've always loved writing. I'm a huge nerd. I love books, I love movies, I love storytelling in general. And I've always dreamed about writing my own book, or at least finishing one, because over the years I've started and abandoned countless drafts and different book ideas that now just sit gathering dust on my hard drive. And it was the only thing at the time that I could think of that actually interested me and might be something I want to pursue. But people in my life were understandably worried about my career prospects with a potential future as a struggling writer, and I admit that wasn't exactly a comforting image for myself. So I hesitated and I took time to think it over again. I took a gap year after year 12, not to travel the country or travel overseas, but mostly just to relax and unwind. Partly due to the fact that traveling is expensive and I don't have the cash to spend thousands of dollars on an overseas trip. But mainly due to the fact the last few years I was in years 11 and 12 were amidst the height of COVID. Those who were at school during that time know exactly the type of chaos and confusion that was present for probably close to 3 years. So after I graduated year 12, I was so mentally drained that I just couldn't jump straight back into studying again. So do you know what happens when a kid has a bunch of free time for 12 months? He plays games. All day. Every day. And I'm not gonna lie, the first month or so was pretty great. You have so much time to yourself. You don't have to wait to come back from school every day to jump on your computer. You can just immediately spend the whole day catching up on games you hadn't had the time to play. But in retrospect, this was a huge mistake. Turns out too much of anything, no matter how good, quickly ruins the experience. Who could have known? You know that feeling of spending hours finding the perfect mods for Skyrim, making sure they're compatible, loading them up in your mod manager, and then deciding you're too tired or bored to play anymore? Yeah, that was pretty much every day. So ultimately, I was forced to, go outside, touch grass, and I got a job in the interim. But during that time where I wasn't gaming, I actually took time to reflect and think and look back on all the games I'd been playing for the past few months. And if you'd look at my Steam library, you'd notice the majority of my most played games are RPGs or historical sims. I've spent thousands upon thousands of hours in these genres of games. 1100 hours in Civ 5, 930 hours in Hearts of Iron, 870 hours in Crusader Kings 2, and 822 hours in Crusader Kings 3. And what I began to consciously realize is that I wasn't really drawn to these games for a passion for turn-based combat or beautiful graphics. I was drawn to them because of history. Because behind every map, every faction, every conflict, every story, there was a version of real human history. Sometimes direct, sometimes distorted, but always rooted in us. It made those games feel so much more alive and exciting to me. It's that special feeling of knowing the characters you are playing as, the world you're inhabiting, is real. The people were real. Take Skyrim, for example. Yes, the entire world is fake, the characters are fictional, but its Nords were inspired by real-world Vikings. The symbolism is incredibly obvious. In Fallout, their entire genre is inspired by 1950s optimistic Americana. something rooted at the very heart of the very real Cold War era. Fallout's story is a very literal what if? What if power, greed, ideology, and technology spiraled out of control in the worst possible ways? Even Crusader Kings wasn't just about conquering land and expanding your empire. It was about dynasties, cultures, religions, and power, shaping your legacy, your story, and how the actions you do now ripple down across the years and can define entire centuries. Don't get me wrong, I love RPGs for their stories and world building, immersing the player into an amazing world with interesting characters and motivating conflicts. I love games like Skyrim, as I've detailed profusely in the past, but this interest was different. All these different games, different genres, they were all linked by one thing. They were inspired by us, by humanity, by real people, real conflicts, real inventions, real ideas. And once I saw that, I couldn't just unsee it. What if these games I'd loved playing for years weren't just entertainment, but stepping stones to understanding the real world? And that's when I decided that's what I wanted to study. I knew it was the vague direction I wanted to steer my life in. Of course, I had no idea what that meant. I can't code, I can't make video games, and I certainly can't influence the world. I'm not a conqueror, a leader, a hero, nor a villain, and I'm certainly not looking to become a politician. I'm just some guy. And I didn't want to influence the world, that's not what I was looking for. I'm more fascinated by the links, the ties that bind the world together in a million billion unexpected ways. The historical events that, no matter how seemingly small or insignificant they were at the time, greatly impacted and changed the direction of our species. Like how the American Revolution helped inspire and ignite the French Revolution, or how World War I planted the seeds for World War II. It's when I started to realize that my hobbies and interests weren't just analyses of events past and long gone. It was pattern recognition. It's a deep understanding of our world and of human society. And it's an incredibly enlightening perspective when you realize that history isn't really a series of independent events. No topic is isolated. In some way or another, everything is sequential, everything is connected. And consequently, this meant my hobby and passion for studying history eventually branched beyond it, leading into a love of geography, politics, which of course led into geopolitics. Something which on the surface people just, scoff and roll their eyes at. But from my experience, it was the most fun and interesting thing in the world. Of course it can be boring and disheartening if all you listen to are a plethora of politicians sprouting a billion words but saying nothing, making the worst possible decisions, and lying to their country. Then it's a subject I understand people would want to avoid. But in a lot of ways, it's also necessary. I'm sure you've heard the phrase, history repeats itself, or those who don't know history are doomed to repeat it. A lot of people take that at face value, thinking of sequential conflicts like World War I leading to World War II. But that's not the whole truth. Yes, it's pattern recognition, making sure we don't commit the same mistakes of the past, but it's also pattern recognition of society, of human behavior. And that doesn't mean I want you to brush up on your Encyclopedia Britannica, digesting every single minor date and ancient figure. It's much easier than that. It's much easier when you realize the trends and the connections. Certain perspectives, worldviews, creeds, and ideologies reappear again and again. They like to dress themselves up as being the new and improved modern version, but that's just a thinly veiled facade. When a group starts to feel alienated in the modern world, they go back to when they felt powerful and in control. However, it can be extremely dangerous when a group perceives themselves as being isolated or attacked. What happens is they take inspiration from those ideas of the past and in doing so ignore, whether purposefully or not, the damage those ideas caused. That's why remembering history matters, not to memorize dates and names, but to recognize the patterns. Because when you don't see it, you run the risk of repeating it. And without getting into specifics, I think many of us can feel that the world is a bit scary today. We've seen moments in history where humanity has faced similar challenges, and looking back we can learn a lot from how those moments unfolded. The patterns are there, and if we recognize them, we can make better choices moving forward. And that shouldn't be political, it shouldn't be divisive to say that the preservation of human life and the goal of maintaining peace is somehow a controversial thing. But right now, for some reason, it is. And it's incredibly sad we've reached this point. And so, to complete an incredibly long-winded tangent, that's what led me to study a political degree. Something that came from humble origins of a kid just wanting to play and enjoy video games. That developed into what can only be described as a deep-seated love for humanity. For knowledge, for everything that has been done, and the million billion possibilities that lay before us. These games influenced me. They changed me. They shaped my morals and my worldview. By immersing myself in a world where the bad guy doesn't win, where good triumphs, and sometimes, just sometimes, there is a happily ever after, it instills me with hope. It's a beautiful story. One directly influenced by the real world we live in. One that I very much would love to see continue. I don't want to see it collapse in a dystopia from one of my favorite video games. I assume many people don't want that either. It has so much more promise than that. Humanity has done many terrible things, but so many good things as well. We have the potential for so much more. So that's what I mean by video games choosing my degree. They shaped me, molded me, influenced who I am and how I see the world. I chose my degree not out of a desire to change the world, but just out of a deep-seated love for it. Hey, thanks for watching. If you enjoy this type of content, consider liking or subscribing. It really means a lot and helps this channel in a million ways. And of course, feel free to watch some of my other videos. But no matter what, no matter who you are or where you come from, thank you very much for watching. And I'll see you in the next video.